annual Pride Parade took place over this weekend, and as we've seen in Pride parades in other cities, uh, I wouldn't say it was hijacked by the pro-Hamas movement, but it definitely uh, they got an honorable mention in the form of people showing up with PLO flags, chanting "Free Palestine," chanting whatever it is that they chant, and making the cause that Pride Parade is exists for also about the cause of exterminating the Jews, which of course I'm sure they will say is not what they're for, but in showing their support for Hamas, that is what they are for. In effect, welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, your thoughts on what we saw in the Pride Parade this weekend, and generally this idea of people from the gay community supporting those who actually should be their enemies.
Yeah, I mean, so you talked about the hijacking. So yeah, they've used this parade to basically go around and do something with the businesses. I think mainly banks were focused on, or I think it was even something like McDonald's. Basically, any company that is complicit in genocide, which could mean many ways. It could mean they just have a branch in Israel that is enough for them to basically oppose them. Yeah, I mean the whole idea of yeah. So I mean, there's many things to talk about here. So the main point would be that many Jewish groups were even from the gay community were afraid to basically join in on these protests because there were so many pro-Palestinian but actually pro-Hamas groups joining directly, and they didn't feel comfortable joining, understandably. Uh, so that will be like the one of my first point is that yeah, you have these Palestinian groups pretty much joining anything they can to advocate for this cause, which is making many other parties, uh, well, one, it's completely hijacking the actual purpose of, let's say, the Pride Parade, and is also, yeah, making many groups that would otherwise participate in this very uncomfortable. I always like the idea that I've never been to a Pride Parade, but if I ever went, uh, everyone there would probably completely politically different than me in a sense. When it comes to LGBT community, you usually have more progressive people, more left-wing people there. So I would disagree with all of them, but I could still be relatively comfortable with joining because it is not about everything. It is specifically, I mean, I would argue in my case, in my country, it is about normalizing the idea that gay people exist and the fact that they should have equal rights before the law when it comes to marriage, when it comes to, let's say, having, uh, you know, I I live in a backward country where you couldn't, if your partner went to a hospital, you couldn't even visit him because you're not family and you don't have basically any legal way of connecting the two of you if you're gay. So, I could feel okay with joining these sort of pride parades because I would generally agree on the goal, even if I don't agree with everything. But if I saw pro-Palestinians, these pro-Palestinian people joining even in my country, yeah, I would feel much less comfortable. Or even if they use, let's say, the Pride Parade had something like a socialist or communist uh, ideas also behind them or advocating for them, yeah, I would also be much less comfortable with joining them because I wouldn't want to support these. So I think if you want to criticize it, I think that's the one of the problems when it comes to the pro-Palestinian crowd, like joining this, is that it makes the people who uh, would be okay with joining these protests, and it makes them, yeah, basically step away from it.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. I mean, one, I'm not a fan of pride parades. I don't, mostly because I don't see how that is going to convince anyone. If you actually think you want to change things. Now, what you're talking about in Slovakia, there's real reason to, for activism to change the laws. I think in the UK and in many Western countries, there's less of that, and it's just a thing that is done, every June. But yeah, is this the way to convince people? That's one question. Another question, though, is all those questions aside, if you are, advocating for certain ideas, uh, why are you tying in a bunch of other things with it? And in this case, it's particularly appropriate, I think, if you're advocating for, considering recognizing LGBT people, as equal, at least before the law. Why are you mixing it with a cause in which of again savages who slaughtered people and who kill gay people for being gay? So the mixture there is problematic. Again, I think the fact of the parade itself is problematic. But yeah, you mentioned the fact that some Jews w were uncomfortable with that and uncomfortable being there and being involved. And that's a thing that happens more and more. In a sense, I think, Jews are being shown at least the errors of the ways of some left-wing ideas, even against their better judgment, if we can say it that way, because many Jews want to be on the left, and the left tells them no, and tells them no in no uncertain terms. You go to things that something else that happened this weekend was the Glastonbury Music Festival, and you and Morgan talked about it yesterday. Uh, that's a cultural event, a big cultural event that happens every year in the UK. And again, if you're a Jew who wanted to go there to just listen to music, you have this reminder that, hey, some people think that that state where you people like live and are allowed to live and have a majority. Well, we think it should be wiped out and replaced with the people who on October 7th raped, tortured, and murdered and burned people alive and did the most horrendous crime. We stand with those people who say in no uncertain terms that they want this done to all Jews. So now, again, the fact that if you hold bad ideas and other people who hold bad ideas tell you you're not welcome here, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna then change your mind, for the better. But it at least tells you something about how those bad ideas work and how they're gonna work for you.
Yeah, so you talked about well, first of all, something we forgot to mention because I'm just reading my notes. So basically, one of the reasons why this Pride Parade happened on Saturday. One thing that happened before is many of these protesters were actually arrested by the police before the event took place, and the main reasons for it being that they actually had planned the Metropolitan Police had intelligence that uh, basically these protesters were planning to disturb peace, to basically even assault some businesses, to block the roads that they were not supposed to, and were arrested because of it, which to me seems relatively reasonable. So when it comes to these groups, yeah, basically something that I've mentioned before uh, is something that we see now is this sort of idea that anything is about everything. That basically, if you want to join Pride Parade, you have to be pro-Palestinian, you have to support Black Lives Matter, you have to support boycott, whatever, divestment, all of those things. Basically, it's all packaged in together, while not actually having any reason why these things should be together. You can have mm, you can have different opinions on all of these, and there might be even good reason to have different opinions on all of these. I mean, yeah, someone in the chat mentions intersectional. Yeah, I mean, the idea, yeah, it's the idea that basically everything is together, and basically if you don't agree with one thing, you're basically not the real thing. You're not actually progressive, or whatever word they want to use. You're not actually fully committed unless you are actually fully committed. You don't support any of the ideas if you don't support all of these ideas.
Yeah, the way these ideas are connected is often by somebody saying that they are connected and pretty much ending it there. So yeah, you'll hear, look, yeah, this is about anti-racism and the Palestinian cause, about anti-racism and about climate change and about feminism and all that. And you hear people say that, and I kind of always hope that somebody at least will say to them, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. Can you explain why?" Because I can't imagine what that explanation would be. I can't imagine it. I can imagine it going one or two sentences further. I can't imagine somebody really having an explanation of how all these. I mean, I can explain how they're connected. They're all bad ideas that would make human life worse, but I don't think that's what they're going for. And I would love to hear otherwise. Thank you, Yotam, for the super chat. Yotam says, let's do a fundraiser to help send them to Gaza. Yeah, I support that. We mentioned it a few days ago that we would like to. Who was it that we wanted to? Oh, just generally people who are pro-Palestinian. Because on Friday we had an episode about that the Asian American. I'm guessing he's American from his accent. Who went to Ramallah and was very surprised that he gets racist comments just shouted at him because he's Chinese looking. So yeah. If more of them experience actually get to meet Palestinians, get to talk to them, get to hear what they think, and let's hope that's where it ends. Because again, if you send the Pride Parade people to Gaza, it's not going to end in a debate or in some derogatory comments. But yeah, it would be good if these people actually realized who it is they're supporting. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Glastonbury is another Palestine love event. Yes, but why? I mean, it's historically not a Palestine love event. It's a music festival. So how everything is co-opted by literally the worst cause you can take upon yourself politically is a question that I'm afraid we'll have to leave to the historians. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Yeah, Daniel.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned the businesses, so it is understood that they planned out to basically go, and I have a bunch of businesses here, Barclay, I don't know how to pronounce any of those, Barclay, AXA, Hewlett Packard, McDonald's, I know how to pronounce that one, and some other companies who supposedly support Israel's war in Gaza. And that perfectly reminded me of there was this ad which started with like a boy buying a can of Pepsi. Um, and I don't think you need many more reasons to basically not drink Pepsi. But basically, they like he like bought a can of Pepsi. That money went to someone else who like bought it from someone, and basically it ended with like a rocket dropping on a Palestinian child and a mother. So yeah, it's this idea that basically if you engage in pretty much if you engage in any activity, you are supporting the war in Gaza, which again it is so like ridiculous and yeah. So I mean, at the root, like anti-capitalist, but connecting to something else, because we mentioned that. You have this idea of gays for Palestine, or you have these like people who would be persecuted in those countries, like supporting them, and like what actually goes through their head, and some people bring up, well, if you're gay, you would be not even you would be much happier. You would actually be able to survive in Israel as opposed to Gaza, and so some Palestinian protesters brought up the idea that Israel is just is just pinkwashing. The only reason why they have relatively, or not even relatively, why they have much better rights when it comes to gay community, or they only want to look good on the international scale. And you know, well, they came out with a concept for it. It's called pinkwashing, so it must be true. But just think about what they are saying. Basically, they would rather live in a country that throws them off the buildings than live in a country that they have rights, but it's not genuine. There is this like Jewish conspiracy, like using them so they can what, kill Palestinians. Uh, and again, the root of it is this sort of like anti-Semitism, this sort of like Jewish conspiracy, because it, just the, I could never understand these ideas that basically the whole like think about Israel. It is a democratic nation. They have, you have all range of opinions. You have people opposing the war. You have people supporting the war. Very few people are actually supporting the war in the way we would want. But you have this sort of like range of political spectrum, and yet, I mean, even right now you have like 15 parties in Knesset. Like, I mean, like, come on, guys, researching any topic in Israel is a pain. Uh, but basically you have like all these different parties, yet they somehow all group together and are committing now this like conspiracy. uh it is really anti-Semitic. It that is at the root of it.
Yeah, the idea that Israel has respects gay rights for pinkwashing reasons to let the world see that they're somehow better. You can say that about everything. You can say the only reason Arabs in Israel aren't treated like Jews are treated anywhere the Palestinians are in control is to look good, or the only reason there's free speech and relatively free market. Like you can say that about anything. Bottom line is, yeah, Israel is better for all of those reasons, and that is the reason why decent human beings support Israel and the rest do not. Um, so we had a few things here in the chat that I wanted to mention earlier. Where was it? Yeah, Clementine asked, "How is Starbucks connected to Israel?" And Rafe said, "Starbucks invests in Israel, or rather does business in Israel." I'm not actually sure if there is a Starbucks in Israel. I remember there was, they tried a few times and they shut it down. Israel has its own cafe culture, and Starbucks is not really a good fit for it. So I don't know, but you know, um, I'm sure it has nothing to do with Howard Schultz being the founder of Starbucks and having a kind of Jewish name. And then there was another comment I wanted to read here. Susie says, I went to Glastonbury in 2000 and it wasn't as bad back then. Some flags and NGOs there, but nothing like today. Yeah. There was also some display in Glastonbury about immigration and how immigrants are being treated and so on, and which, I might agree with the content of. I'm not sure because I didn't look into it deeply enough. But again, it makes you wonder. Sometimes you just want to go and listen to music or see a show or something, and it's becoming less and less possible nowadays to have that without it being, filled with political propaganda, and that political propaganda is very, very often from the left. And if it's not filled with political propaganda, it might have people protesting it because it doesn't have that propaganda, or it has the wrong kind. We've talked, I think, on TRS Extra. Did we talk about Jerry Seinfeld and how he's on tour and he has people protesting because he's shown his support for the victims of the savages. Anyway, Garbled Words, thank you for the super chat. Garbled Words says, Rabbi Jacobson just died. I wonder if you could draw a line between the inclusive and good intentions of renewal Judaism and current anti-Zionist sentiment in younger Jews. I don't know about renewal Judaism enough to comment on it. If it's anything like Reform Judaism. It's I don't know. I've always struggled with these different types, but look, religion. The starting point is a departure from reason, or rather, a complete opposition to reason, and so in a sense, mixing bad ideas with other bad ideas, can work as well as just keeping the original bad ideas or the new bad ideas. But yeah, I can't speak specifically to that. I do not think I have heard of Rabbi Jacobson. So, Daniel, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, maybe just so I don't know about this specifically, but more broadly, I would just say, if let's say the young people are becoming anti-Zionist, uh, and if you want to equate it to the rise of secularism or atheism, I mean, if your only justification for the Jewish state is religious, or for Israel is religious, you are on borrowed time, because religion is ultimately anti-reason and is not based in reality. So if your defense of Israel is also not based in reality, it will not survive for long. So um, if this Reform Judaism is just something, making Judaism bit less mystical or something like that. I mean, it would be good to see. I don't think there is a reason to support it, since religion is, you don't support Protestantism or some sort of reformed Christian faith just because it's a bit worse than whatever was before that. You still oppose it, all of it on principle. So while some reform coming out might be a sign of, let's say, the society, modernizing a bit more, or let's say this religion modernizing a bit more, that might be a good sign. But I, it's not enough. You need a reality-based reason uh, for defending Israel. You cannot take shortcuts, because we've seen where those shortcuts have gotten us.
So Deborah says in the chat, renewal is like reform. So yeah, I have an anecdote on this. Don't know how relevant it is, but I remember Passover many years ago in somewhere outside of Israel with I celebrated friends of the family, and so on the eve, the Seder Eve, you read the Haggadah. I don't know if there's a word for it in English, but anyway, it's this booklet that you read the story of Passover and so on. I never liked that holiday because it's like a never-ending night, and then you can't eat good food for the next week or so. Um, but anyway, they had a different text of the Haggadah than what I grew up with, and it included all sorts of things like hoping for a Palestinian state and hoping for a gay marriage. At the time, the gay marriage was not legal. So yeah, I thought at the time this is weird. It would make more sense, just stick consistently to the bad ideas of religion or consistently to the bad left-wing ideas. Now, in the twilight of my years, I'm more, accepting of those ideas being mixed as long as they stay away from me. Um, but yeah, anyway, so uh, yeah, back to the topic. Although I
Yeah.
was actually thinking, yeah.
Yeah, just quickly, because someone said in the chat if current governments are also on borrowed time for the same reason. Uh, yeah, uh, the mixed economy that pretty much most, or a large part of the all of Western world pretty much is on, is inherently unstable and will move to one of the directions. It will either become, because of the problems with the mixed economy, because of the irregularities it creates, it, it will either get even more regulation because of the reasons, the similar way how 2009 crisis was used to basically advocate for more regulation, how the Great Depression was used to argue for more control. Eventually, you'll get to the point where it's no longer stable enough to exist. I mean, when you think about the history, most countries are at most like decades old. You have very few countries that are in this sort of like hundreds of years old. So yeah, we are on borrowed time, and we are becoming increasingly more statist. Most of the Western world is. The only way out of it is to try to change the direction and slowly start becoming, when it comes to economy, more liberalized. When it comes to individual freedoms, more respected. That's the only way to basically prevent this from, yeah, falling into itself.
Yeah, Race says nothing says I love life more than starving yourself. Yeah, I mean in Passover you don't actually, it's not a fast. I think it's worse than a fast because it's more than a day. It's like 5 or 6 days, and you're allowed to eat, but you're not allowed to eat things. I don't know what the exact rules are, but I know what they result in, which is any type of bread related items and a bunch of other things, and yeah, it's just a long miserable week as far as I remember, although I did at some point, once I was able to drive, I would always go to the nearby Arab town where you could get bread. But yes, I am not a fan of that for many reasons. Thank you,
You
PC,
need
for the
some good Palestinian chicken place in your town.
Yes, that is for those of you who haven't seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, that's a Curb reference. Thank you, PC. PC says, Judaism is a myth like all religions. My ancestors thought it was real history. Nope. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, all right. Davy Boy says, not eating chametz for 8.5 days doesn't bother me one bit. Is it that long? Is it 8.5 days? Well, we agree to disagree on that. It bothers me a great deal. And also it's not done, again, it's not based on any real reason to avoid it. Anyway, speaking of bad ideas, people with bad ideas coming together for bad causes, the Israeli left is uniting, and that is going to be one of two topics we're going to talk about on today's episode of the reality show. We're also going to talk about what the rescued hostages get wrong. Yes, we are going to criticize some of what the hostages have said. Tomorrow on the Daily Objective, we have Adam Mossoff. I have been a big fan of Adam for many years. He's been on the channel, I believe, once so far on HBTV, but this will be his first time on the Daily Objective. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to talk about why this is the most important issue of our lifetime. And yeah. Oh, and of course, tomorrow on the reality show, we will be debating whether or not people in the UK should vote Reform UK. Look, the good thing about the election being Thursday is that Friday we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to not talk about UK politics anymore, except from time to time as Labour, the new Labour government, ruins something new or old. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Daniel. We'll see you in a couple of minutes on the reality show.